Hey everybody, this is Brendan Toller, marketing manager of Verso Studios at the Westport Library. I'm here with G's Records and DJ Terrible T, hip-hop legend, and about to be a lot more hip-hop legends up in here at VersoFest 2023 for the 50th anniversary Legends, Beats, and Grooves program we got going on.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is G's Records, and I am the CEO of Legend Beats and Grooves. And I have today the godfather of Connecticut Hip Hop, DJ Terrible T, and he will be moderating Legend Beats and Grooves April 2nd, VersoFest.
And it's a pleasure to be welcomed to the house, to come here. Westport is one of those areas that we typically didn't do hip hop coming up in the early days. I am the original DJ Terrible T. Originally straight out of Stamford, Connecticut, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be able to explain some of the things we're going to do and the importance of why we're doing it on the 50th anniversary of hip-hop, music, and culture.
Yes. Well, Legend Beats and Grooves started about 10 years ago with Jimmy Dennis, Jim Slice, and myself. And what it is that we bring the park inside. When I say that, with the DJs, the atmosphere, we bring that feeling from outside that happened in the park in the early 70s of hip hop. We're bringing it inside. And we're also educating you on the culture of DJing. And we're letting you see these DJs, not average DJs, these DJs practice, they take time to elevate their skills on those turntables. So that's what we're going to do April 2nd, VersoFest.
What time?
That would be 5:30. Excuse me.
5
o'clock to 6:30. Sorry. Come in. Okay.
And add to that, I would say that as Gary just spoke about G Records, the hip-hop form of DJing has elevated to such an art form that it has gone worldwide, and ethnic groups, nationalities throughout the world are now doing this thing called hip-hop. It's very important to know its meager and very humble beginnings as a form of people coming together for what we know as the four cornerstones of hip-hop culture, which is unknown to most people from its inception. And we came together for peace, love, unity, and having fun. Its inception was, as is documented, 1973, August 11th, Cedric and Cedar, which has now been renamed Hip Hop Boulevard by a gentleman by the name of DJ Kool Herc and the Herculoids, as they started this whole genre of what is now called hip hop. It's very important to know that it wasn't called hip-hop in its early days. It was called rap music. Rap music is nothing but rhythmic, artistic poetry. We was expressing our feelings, our experiences, what was going on in our lives in the streets. We took it to the parks, and then corporate America picked it up, and it didn't become known as hip-hop till 1992, officially 1992. But it's been here since 1973, the very art form of what we know as DJing, MCing, which was microphone controller, master of ceremony. We had break dances. We still have break dances, which is nothing but a form of a martial art that came out of Brazil by way of Africa called capoeira, excuse me. And we had graffiti artists, which is our modern day form of what we know as hieroglyphics. People would tag trains and tag all type of things and put their story on the walls. It was illegal, but this is how it all came about. And we also had the very most important one, which is the knowledge, which was missed by many groups in the early days. They didn't have knowledge of mechanical rights and copyrights and owning their masters and publishing. And so you'll find that a lot of the earlier groups did not become wealthy, did not become, as they would say, millionaires. So, but it gave the it was the gateway to people today making a lot of money. Unfortunately, today's music, I must say, doesn't have the substance that the early hip hop had. We were really telling a story. We were telling things that were happening, and it was positive. It was something that your grandmother, your mother, your fathers could listen to, because it wasn't profanity in it, wasn't cursing, it wasn't talking about violent acts being committed against each other. And unfortunately, once money got into it, that's where the corruption came about. So today we're still calling hip hop, and I know it's still called hip hop, and we'll honor that at this point, because in the industry, that's unfortunately what it's, and I say unfortunately, because when you go back to its meager roots, again, with those 4 principles it stands by, what is it? Peace, love, unity, and having fun. And you want to take it from there, G?
Well, that's why we're doing what we're doing, because we want to keep representing the true culture, which I call it the true culture of this art form. And we want to show the young generation the DJing side of it, the MC side of it, not what they are used to hearing today, you know? So with VersoFest, we're hoping that we can show and examine like a cultural richness and show the people of Westport what we're doing.
Absolutely, because there's just, unfortunately, a lot of misinformation and misconceptions of what hip-hop music's foundation, I have to keep saying that, foundation is all based on. You take brothers like us in our 50s, and I'm 62 now, and I use this as one of my, if you want to call it, avenues, one of my platforms to not just do music and make money, but more importantly, raise a family, buy a home, have my own business. And so it's much more important just the performing part, is the business aspect of it, which today we try to educate the younger generations that have come behind us. And that's why they're getting money like they're getting money, because they're owning their own publishing, they're owning their masters, they are making sure copyrights is in their name. They understand what mechanical rights are. When they hear that music now being played at an NFL game or NBA game or whatever major sporting event, they're getting paid. They're not, people are just not taking the culture, the art form, and making money off us. They're making money with us now, which is very, very important.
True indeed.
Because that's where the unity part, if you're just signing people to make money, but you're basically taking all the money and you're left with the crumbs, that's not fair. And so hopefully we can bring that to light by having our platform April 2nd at VersoFest 2023, and I look forward to educating. And again, that the knowledge, education is the 5th part of that, where we just talked about the DJ, the MC, the graffiti writer, the breakdancing, but the knowledge is the 5th element. Originally, I'm not talking about clothes. People want to throw that in all the time. No, it's not. It wasn't fashion. There was no hip hop clothes. We dressed like entertainers and tried to dress in a way that we seen people. So you'll see people maybe in the early 70s dressed like James Brown, or how they see Michael Jackson or the Jacksons. You'll see how they were dressed, and they had the belt buckles and the spikes, and so there was no hip hop clothes. They took that and they ran with it, and now they call it hip hop clothes. But again, it's unfortunately what has happened. People have skills, they have art, they have information, and people take it, run with it, make money on it, and the people who really was the foundation of it really don't get much from it. And they don't even get the credit for it at this point. And if we don't keep this story, not the story, but the truth alive, what do you say, G?
Well, that's true. That's true. So that's why we're bringing you, with our platform, we're going to bring you Grand WIZZARD Theodore. He is the inventor of the scratch, and he will come down and demonstrate what he's doing. And also, we have DJ Tony Tone from the Cold Crush Brothers. Also, we will have DMC champion, DMC skillful, Grandmaster Supreme coming, and up-and-coming DJ RAGOZA will be on the lineup also. So, come on down, have a good time with us, and we'll have a good time with you. And let's network. Let's network and see how we can help each other in the future.
And I can tell you with that lineup, people's eyes are going to be amazed. They're going to be like, did I just see what I saw? It will not be an optical illusion, which you see these guys do on 2 turntables and a mixer. You will see a creative form of DJing that totally goes adverse to what the DJs were doing before that, which hip-hop came from the direct, as we would always call it, rebellion of just disco music. They would just put on a record, they wouldn't even touch it, they just let it play, and then they would just mix it. But what these guys are gonna do, amazing. One of those gentlemen, I happen to call him the Terminator, and that's Grandmaster Supreme. It's incredible what he's able to do, and the rest they do their thing in their own right. But this is where we talk about the art form, the culture of it. It's just not putting a record on and letting it play. It's not just putting a record on and blending it to another. No, these are things they do by picking up a tone arm, a needle, and they manipulate it and make the sound of the record sound so different than what you're used to hearing. And it's on beat, it's rhythmic, it's very artistic, and it's powerful, what you see. And again, it won't be an optical illusion. I enjoy seeing them do it every time. And of course, we have different type of DJs. We have DJs that play differently. But with the lineup that G Records has for April the 2nd, I guarantee you will not be disappointed. And I don't know, are you going to allow cameras? Because are you going to allow cameras?
Yeah, everybody could come out and enjoy yourselves, you know. Like I said, we're going to meet, greet, and network. And we're also going to teach that day. There's also a panel discussion. And we're going to, you know, have Q&A with that panel discussion. But we're going to talk on the culture of hip-hop that day, April 2nd, VersoFest.
And it's not just all about the music.
It's free. Is it? Yeah.
It's free. Okay. All right.
Free?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Okay. Free at last.
Yeah. Terrible T.
Yes, sir.
How'd you discover hip hop?
In the latter 70s, I was introduced by 2 in particular groups that came up from Westchester County. One was called the Collin Brothers, come out of Mount Vernon, New York. Another gentleman by the name of Playboy Snapper. And this is before Africa Bambaataa, DST, Jazzy J, Red Alert, and all them came. This is pre-records. I mean, before they even made records. This was at Yearwood Center in Stanford. It was Chester Addison Center as well in Stanford. South End Community Center, which is now called Latham Wilder Community Center in Stanford. It was the Carver Center in Norwalk, Connecticut. These were like the main hubs in Lower Fairfield County where hip-hop was first being seen. And both of those towns, Stanford and Norwalk, will attest to that. And it then went north. But that's where I first, you know, was introduced to it by seeing like these songs. Like you didn't even know what the song was. Back then we called it the break beats, and they would play a lot of songs. But then there's parts of the party they would play these break beats, and then you're sitting there wondering what was that. And we used to run around and try to find out who was that. We want to look at the album cover to see what that. It was obscure music. It wasn't your normal music. It was just something totally different. And when you saw the DJ going back and forth, my particular influences from day one is Africa Bambaataa, Jazzy J, and DST. Bam for the cuts, the break beats, Jazzy J for the precision cuts, and DST for the finesse. DST, by the way, if you don't know, was the first hip-hop DJ with a Grammy. He won a Grammy with Herbie Hancock in 1983. He actually was on the stage with the immortal Michael Jackson that night, where Michael Jackson swept the Grammys. But you go back, you'll see Rocket. He was the one that, real good friend of mine to this very day. We still do events together. Our last event we did was in Atlantic City. So that's where it all came.
Those early events, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What's it like?
Well, you saw the coming of the community. Like, And in particular, I can only speak from my area, which is Stanford, and particularly Norwalk, because my mother was from Norwalk, my father was from Stanford. And we always had this camaraderie between both towns. So Stanford would come to Norwalk, Norwalk would come to Stanford, and I would see the coming together of community. And we always did it in the community centers pretty much, because we were kids. We were not old enough to go in the club. So what I saw was the power of unifying people in the community from different areas, and people literally was doing just that, having fun, unifying, having fun, and expressing this new art form that kind of just took the world by storm, let's say it like that. That's what I saw in the early days. So.
And then when were you like, I got to be part of this?
Well, I started, I went to school on an athletic basketball scholarship. I was a former all-state, all-FCAC, all-Daily News shooting guard. I played scholastically at West Hill. And I had learned some of that before I went to college. And being a freshman and having no other way to make money, let me take this up to school and do a little something. That's where the name Terrible T actually was given to me by my college center teammate, guy named by Mike Wilcoxon from Massachusetts. He said, "Oh, that boy's terrible." You know, of course, terrible meant good. Like today, people say you was a beast. And I took the handle of Imperial Wizard because everybody had, you know, the top-notch DJs had these handles like Grandmaster Flash and Grand Wizard Theodore, and you know, it was Grand Mixer DST. And so I took the title Imperial Wizard, but you just didn't take a name because it sounded good. You had to have skills. And I did a lot of practicing. I'm just observing. No one showed me nothing. And I saw how I can, like, back and forth from turntable to turntable, to me was like a guard, you know, handling the basketball, back and forth to back and, you know what I mean? Like, that's, so I said, man, I'm gonna learn how to do that. I know I can do that. And ended up learning how to do it.
Where'd you go digging?
Where did I dig? I basically digged, there was a place called Downtown Records in New York, Manhattan. But locally, I went to a place called, was called Unique World. We called it Jamaican Joe Forrest, bless his soul. He was a main person I went for records. James Lyle, J&L Records. And I used to call on the west side in Stanford. And then there was another record store, was called Hollywood Records on the South End. We called him, they used to call him Juniors, Jamaican guy. We called him Boss Man. He had a big, like, Frederick Douglass beard, older guy. But they were all older gentlemen that, you know, we would go there and say, have our little box. You got this song? You know what this is? And those were my main suppliers in Connecticut. Only place I went in New York was Downtown Records. I went there to get, we was digging for the beats, looking for the perfect beat. Or the beats we heard at parties, because that was the thing you had to break. You had to have these records, otherwise sit down.
How long you been doing stuff with Legend Beats and Grooves?
Well, I believe, I think Gary's best to answer that. Maybe, I mean, he called on me to first started doing some things, what was it, about 10 years ago?
No, not 10.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. About 6 years ago.
All right, 6 years ago. You get old, you know, you start losing memory. But again, it's been such a long ride. I can't remember all this stuff. That's why I'm glad he's here to knock my brain. It was six years ago. So he asked me to DJ, though. So I'm DJing with some of the same gentlemen that he's bringing forth. But then he said, because I was able to, it's a gift, you know, and God be the glory, I'm able to articulate, to explain it in a very informative way with this hip hop, because, you know, just because you can do it, that doesn't mean you can explain it very well. And again, to God be the glory, I'm able to narrate and articulate this culture in a way that now I'm called to do a lot of moderation and being hosts of hip hop events. And I take pride in that, because I don't want people to look at hip hoppers as just people that just make music and spin on their head or cut records. Now we're intelligent. There's a lot of intelligence that's involved in our culture. And, you know, it's like what, unfortunately, what Donald Trump tried to tell LeBron James, just shoot basketball or bounce a basketball. No, I'm not just going to DJ either. It's more to me than just spinning a record. If I never DJ again, I'm going to always be a person that's going to have an impact in hip-hop. I right now personally serve on 2 boards, Hip Hop Alliance. I'm the, what they call the ambassador of hip-hop from the state of Connecticut, and on that board I'm with Chuck D, I'm with Curtis Blow, I'm with KRS-One, people of that nature. Then I'm also with humanitariancoalition.org, which I'm an honorary board member. So they don't look at Terrible T as just a good DJ. And I say good, you know, I ain't gonna say great, you know what I'm saying? That's ego that makes you think you're great. I think what we created was great as far as the culture, because it opened up doors for people to not just get money, to actually build generational wealth. And you see that with a person like Jay-Z, Mr. P, Master P, excuse me. You see that with a P. Diddy. You see that with 50 Cent. I mean, before them, you know, we helped pave the way so future generations can get wealth and generational wealth. Now, what they do with it, that's their business. But I'm thankful that we're part of that culture that helped create that, make that accessible for people, because how else would we get it? Because, you know, the birth of hip-hop comes straight out of 5 years after Dr. King was murdered in Memphis, Tennessee. That was 68, April 4th, right? 1968. The birth of hip-hop documented is August 11th, 1973. So that's a little over 5 years. You know, with the culture or the climate, especially the racial diversity.
What's that August 11th date or significance? What happened then?
That was considered the first hip-hop party with Kool Herc and his sister, and it was on Cedric and Cedar. They actually have a building named after him now on the Grand Concourse. I've actually played in that building, too, for him at his birthday party, along with other greats. You know, I'm just glad to be part of something that's, hopefully we can, as Gary said, that we can bring it back and revive its greatness, because now today you just see a lot of violence associated with it, murders, disrespect, and but you know, when money gets in people's hands and they never had no money and they don't have much guidance, and they're not listening to elders like such us. Not that they will still listen, but at least we're gonna put it out there that, you know, you guys can do better. You know, we didn't create a culture of murder. We created a culture of helping one another and loving one another and respecting each other and growing one another, not hurting one another. You know what I mean? So it's got so far off from its spiritual and mental, let's say, reasoning. It's got so far away from that. It's just so commercial and just about making money, who got the most hits, who got the most views, and who's dressed the most outlandish and stuff like that. And like, but come on. We got, and kids are being affected by it. Obviously, we were kids when we was coming up, so the hip hop that we were getting, look what it created in me.
Did you ever make any records?
No, I had a record deal. And I did put out a song called Now What You Know About That. I was not contracted, I was approached by then Gene Caracas, who was the president and CEO of Celluloid Records, which Freddie Fab 5 did records, Phase 2, DST, Evelyn Champagne was on that label. But I had a crew, and I was asked to put together a demo, which I did, and they didn't want to take my crew. They just wanted to take me because they discovered that I was the one writing for the crew. Because my crew was called Terrible T and the T Force. But Tyrone is my given name by my parents. T was the force behind what they was hearing, what was being rapped about. So they said, you don't need these other guys. So they wanted me to go as a solo artist. And I struggled with that because I came so long with these guys, my crew, and I just didn't, you know, remember, I was young. I was, I was 20, maybe 24, 23. And I just wasn't going to, so to speak, sell out and leave my boys behind and just take Now I'm much wiser, older, of course. Had I known what I know now, I would have went in and didn't pull people along later. But then I didn't do it. And I had songs called "It's Whack." Now, what you know about that was the first one. That was the first demo. I actually did it with the same sample that Mary J. Blige did. It's by Isaac Hayes. G knows what I'm talking about. Ike's Mood. It's called Now What You Know About That. It's by Isaac Hayes, and what we did, it was a 33, but we sped it up to 45. And you hear it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's called Ike's Mood. And I had two MCs that I did that song with. MC Chill Will, a guy named Willie Stedman, who right now is in Philly. And it was Shelly B, Michelle Baith. She's back home now. She was in D.C. for many years. She's back. I seen her recently. And we did that together. But again, like I had to tell Chubb Rock at not an interview. We did a hip hop seminar at West Hill, my old school, and a question was posed about hip hop, and he couldn't answer it. And then the moderator at the school said, "Terrible T, you want to answer that?" And of course, I answered it, no problem. And he kind of gave me a look like, "Well, who's that?" Because everybody.
What was the question?
Yeah, I don't even remember the question at this point. But the point being is that everybody in hip hop didn't make records. You know what I mean? Like there's some real good ball players that never made it to the NBA. Well, there's some really good hip hop performers who never made records. And if you were in that early generation, you had to be very competitive and very good. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be named. And I'm fortunate to have documentation to prove, and other people put it up. I don't do it. I don't do it. But to answer your question simply, no. But I had the opportunity to do it, and and I don't regret it even years later. Because to me, making records, what's more important? Making records or raising a family, and producing productive children who's going to follow on after you're gone. That's how I feel about that. Even with basketball too, I left school because I became a teenage father, and if you would have went and continued to play, yeah, I might have been able to go to the league. I would have at least played overseas, because 4 of the guys I all-starred with went NBA, and I was on the same all-star team with them. So I obviously had enough skills, even as a basketball player, to maybe make it to the league. And I say maybe. But definitely, I could have made records with hip hop. I just turned it down.
You guys got anything else? You got anything else, T?
No, I was waiting for your questions.
That was great, man. Yeah.
I'm just, it's easy for me to answer, just freelance, because I've lived it. I've been doing it since 79. Mm-hmm. 79. Who would ever thought? I'm a 19-year-old kid making waves, get out on the scene, and here I'm in 43 years later. Actually, 44 years later. So, again.
What do you think the best presentation of hip hop is? Is it just a party?
No.
No?
To me, the best presentation of hip hop is to educate people to what it was really all about, not what it came to, or what it has, depending on who you talk to, evolve or dissolve to. I think the purpose, the meaning behind why we did this, because we couldn't go to the clubs. We were too young. We didn't have hard bottoms. The drug of choice back then, of course, drugs was always there, was cocaine. And we've got records to validate we wasn't into that. Melly Mel, Grandmaster Flash put out White Lines, and he said, don't do it. Because at that time, the community was being attacked with not just cocaine, which was the rich man's high. The poor people ended up getting a cheaper version of it, which ended up becoming the crack cocaine. And so our communities have always been under siege and attacked by outer forces that were trying to keep us suppressed. And hip-hop was a way of us coming up out of that and, doing what we've done. And I'm proud of that. And not just saying artists did not use drugs and artists didn't get caught out on drugs. Some of our greatest artists, that was part of the record companies, what they did it to Ray Charles. They got him on heroin, you know what I'm saying? And he got to a point, if you've seen the movie Ray, what does he say? I want to own my masters. And they said, nobody does that, Ray. Well, I'm going to own mine. because that's part of the business. See, we've always been great performers. We've always shown the world that we're great at what we do. But we got to now show the world we're intelligent, articulate, and very good at businessmen at what we do. That's the key right now.